Good day everyone, it's time for yet another instalment of Biology from the Bedroom, the podcast which celebrates the fantastic ideas and misfortunes of the country's most talented early career biologists during these unprecedented times. Not long now folks until we can stop starting every email with, I hope you're keeping well. And also stop pretending we're busy before every Zoom quiz. But for the moment, who have we got today? Her name is Hester Weaving, an applied entomologist from the University of Bristol. After completing a master's on the effect of pesticides on dung beetles, Hester is now at the start of a PhD, where she's investigating the maternal investment behaviours of the Tsetse fly, a dangerous African disease vector. Ha! What could possibly go wrong with that, eh? One thing's for sure, Hester must have nerves of steel. So, without further ado, let's beam potential science leader of the future, Hester Weaving, into my bedroom. Hello Hester, how are we doing?
Hi Benito, I'm good, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Is lockdown treating you okay so far?
Yeah, not too bad Benito, not too bad.
Lovely, but if you were maybe to summarise the current situation in just one word, I've been asking this every week to my guests, but I'm interested to know what your opinion is. What word would you choose, Hester?
It's difficult Benito, because I feel like there are a lot of words which you could use to summarise this situation. But I'd say the best would have to be unprecedented.
Unprecedented, yes.
Yeah.
It's never been more true. 9th week in, I'd say it's never been more true. So, Hester, you started your research career investigating dung beetles, didn't you? Now, I have to be honest, dung beetles aren't the most charismatic or iconic animals in the world. So, why did you do that? Why were you studying dung beetles?
I actually think that they are very cute.
Well, they can't touch you for it, Hester. Oh, very nice. And what were you specifically investigating in them?
Pesticides are used a lot throughout the UK. And I wanted to look at the effect of pesticides on dung beetles, which has been done. But what I wanted to look at in particular was how pesticides affect their reproduction. So I was looking at the size of the eggs of the dung beetles, and I found at the end of my master's that pesticides reduce the egg size. It could be like a direct effect of the pesticide, I guess, and that might give rise to smaller young of the dung beetles. And small tends to mean like less reproductive success in the future.
Right. Well, science moves forwards. There we go.
Yeah,
interesting.
yeah.
And talking about that, you have now moved forward on to your PhD, which is about tsetse flies, another rather disgusting animal.
How rude.
What is a tsetse fly then? And because they're important disease vectors, aren't they?
Yeah, they are. So tsetse flies live in sub-Saharan Africa. So that's around the sort of equator of Africa. They look normal, but they're actually deadly vectors of a disease called trypanosomiasis, or sleeping sickness. And this is a disease that basically affects humans. There's about 1,000 cases a year at the moment. And also livestock and wild animals, costing Africa millions of pounds every year.
Yeah, so it is quite a serious thing. I think the name sleeping sickness kind of tones it down a little bit. I don't know about you. I mean, people may be thinking they have sleeping sickness whilst listening to this podcast, but reassurance that this is a completely different thing. I've heard that the tsetse fly has often been described as kind of the saviour of Africa.
Yes.
Is that right? Do you want to explain a little bit about why it's got that name?
Yeah, so the idea behind that is, so, I was saying how the fly affects livestock. Well, because you can't have these productive livestock in large expanses of sub-Saharan Africa, it's been said that then these areas have been able to be open for conservation purposes, so you get these large wildlife parks instead. And it's also meant that when we came over to colonise Africa, that basically we couldn't get very far because we didn't have like the horses and that sort of thing.
When you're working with such a deadly animal, you must have a lot of bottle, or a lot of blue bottle. Anyway, that was awful, sorry. I made that up on the fly. So your research group, in general, because we're not just interested in the flies, are we? We're rather using the flies as a model to understand something a little bit more broad. So your research group studies life history evolution. Do you want to explain what that is to the layman?
Life history evolution. So I'll go over life history first. So that's looking at when the main events of an organism's lifetime happen and how long they take. So that might be reproduction, death. Actually, my supervisor's doing quite a lot on senescence at the moment. So like aging and why we age. So that's life history, and then evolution of life history. So I guess why these important events in your lifetime, why they're a certain length, why do they happen at a certain time.
And you're specifically focusing on the maternal investments in these tsetse flies. So basically testing whether these tsetse flies are good mothers, am I right, if that's putting it very basic?
Yeah.
So what precisely are you investigating, and why are you doing that?
So what we want to find out is how tsetse flies might be affected by climate change. So climate change will have several stressful effects on tsetse flies, such as high temperatures and malnutrition. So we're thinking that climate change might affect the host population of tsetse flies. And then what I'm looking at is how the mother passes nutrients onto her offspring and if it's affected by this malnutrition. So does the mother keep nutrients for herself, or does she allocate more to her offspring in these stressful times?
Right. Unprecedented times, some might say.
Unprecedented, stressful times.
So when times get more stressful, she may be more likely to be a bit more selfish.
Yeah, might she be selfish, or might she go the other way? And then using that, you can then like add this sort of data into models and predict how tsetse flies might react to the effects of climate change.
Wow, interesting. Like a tsetse fly crystal ball.
That's the idea, Benito, yeah.
You actually keep some tsetse flies in the lab in the Life Sciences building in Bristol, don't you?
I did, yes.
Oh yeah, we must say you don't do them anymore because there's this thing called lockdown. But yeah, they are quite high maintenance, aren't they? I hear you had to go and look after them on Christmas Day.
I did, yeah. My mum was quite upset about that.
Did you give them any Christmas presents or?
No, I didn't, because I thought my presents on Christmas Day itself would be enough. But yeah, they are very high maintenance actually to keep them in the lab, because obviously they feed on just blood. They're fussy in that they like the blood to be warmed up, and they'll only feed off the blood.
Where is this going, Hester?
They only feed off the blood if it's from a membrane. So you have to have a sort of warming plate with the blood on, with a membrane over the top. And then they also have to feed 3 times a week as well. So
right, but hang on. So where do you get this blood from?
It's not a self-sacrificed blood.
Right, okay.
You can order it online.
There's no doubt about it that the COVID-19 pandemic is affecting everybody, but postgraduate researchers are included in that bracket. So how are these circumstances affecting you, Hester? Has it really disrupted a lot of what you were planning to do?
It has. So I was planning to do a lab experiment now. So obviously that's all been cancelled, and I've had to start on some computational work.
So what do you do? What happens with the flies then that you had previously? Well,
actually the flies were no more. So I'd finished an experiment, so they'd been dispatched of.
Where did you get rid of them? You weren't fly tipping, were you?
They're actually in a freezer, so no fly tipping was going on, Benito.
Also, on Biology from the Bedroom, we want to highlight and showcase times where things haven't quite gone to plan, Hester. Mm-hmm. Times where you've been made to feel like a total idiot, or just when, things have just gone absolutely tits up and you've felt like losing the will to live, which I think is something a lot of postgraduate biologists can relate to. Is this something you can relate to, Hester? Have there been times where things haven't gone quite right for you during your research career so far?
One time really does spring to mind when you say things going wrong. So it was during my master's year, which, as you said, I was looking at dung beetles. So my plan was to do an experiment on dung beetles and have a nice population of dung beetles in the lab. And what do dung beetles eat?
Dung.
So I went to collect the dung, and that all went fine. I basically went to this lovely farm and just scooped cow poo off the floor into big buckets. Took it back to the Life Sciences building. Anyway, that all went to plan. But I'd got about 60 litres of dung, and the dung beetles didn't eat all of this. They're quite small, so there was a lot to dispose of. But I knew, it's obviously hazardous waste. The big yellow bags that we have to dispose of hazardous waste, I filled a few of them up, popped them in the hazardous waste. I was like, brilliant. So I came back in a week to get rid of some more of the dung, and an angry sign had been put up in capital letters saying, "Do not put this sort of waste straight into the bin. You're meant to freeze it first." So I was like, oh, goodness me, this isn't good, is it? So then I thought, okay, learn from my mistake, freeze it. So I put them into the freezer. I thought everything was fine.
I hope that wasn't the same freezer that I put my chocolate mousse in, by the way. I'm just trying to think. Anyway,
well, there could be some confusion, couldn't there? So then I came back the next week and the number of angry signs had multiplied.
Yeah.
And this time I was overfilling the bags. So basically the third time I did get it right. And I think the moral of the story here is to plan ahead for this sort of thing. Make sure that you actually do read the health and safety guidelines.
Right. Thanks, Hester, for that story.
No problem, Benito.
Yeah. Also on Biology from the Bedroom, we want to put our guests through their paces, if that's all right, Hester. In order to do that, we have to put you through the cryptic question clock quiz.
Oh, cryptic question, where's it gonna be? Where's it gonna be? Cryptic question, where's it gonna be? Where's it gonna be? Cryptic question, where's it gonna be? Where's it gonna be?
This is a section of the show where we get our guest to answer as many biology-related questions as they can in 60 seconds. But there's an added twist, and that is the cryptic question. One of the answers to the questions I'm about to give you is also an answer to a question in a non-biology related area. And this week, that non-biology related area shall be the year 2014. If you're able to spot the cryptic question, you must let me know before you give your answer using your signature buzzer. And that buzzer, Hester, shall be the sound of a honey badger fighting off a plague of tsetse flies in the midday sun. Okay? Hester, can you give me an indication on what that might sound like, please? Lovely. Very nice. Hester, are you ready to face the cryptic question clock quiz?
I'm ready.
In that case, your time starts now. Moo is the sound made by what kind of animal?
Cow.
Correct. What filamentous structures allow fish and other aquatic animals to breathe?
Gills.
Correct. Along with Charles Darwin, who is often described as the co-discoverer of the theory of evolution?
Ooh, pass.
Alfred Russel Wallace. Benedict's reagents can be used to test for which small biological molecule?
Protein?
Incorrect. Sugar. 5. A protein produced by B plasma cells in response to the presence of the appropriate antigen is known as what?
Antibody.
Correct. The consequences of a surplus of nutrients such as nitrates and phosphates in freshwater ecosystems is known as what?
Eutrophication.
Correct. Name 3 species of mustelid.
Pass.
In molecular biology, what does STR stand for?
Pass.
What kind of animal disperses the spores of the common stinkhorn fungus?
Fly?
Correct. Okay. That's the end of that.
Row.
Yes, Hester.
Benito, didn't Maroon 5 have a top 10 hit in 2014 called Sugar?
So that's your final answer, is it? Has Hester finally spotted the cryptic question? I'm afraid that's incorrect, Hester. That was 2015.
Oh, I'm such a fool.
I know. However, 2014 was the year where the documentary and drama That Sugar Film was made available on Amazon Prime.
Silly me.
But at the end of that round, Hester, you have a pretty respectable 5 points, which doesn't put you in first place on the cryptic question clock quiz leaderboard. That's still Sam England, but respectable nevertheless. Well, now that that's over and done with, Hester, I think we could play a game which is a little bit more fun, a little bit more relaxed.
Okay.
You up for that?
Yeah, I'm up for it.
So this is a game that I like to call Fly or McFly.
Fly, fly, oh McFly, fly, 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 oh McFly, fly, 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 oh McFly, fly.
What I'm about to do is play you audio clips of either a fly or McFly. And on the surface, that sounds easy, doesn't it?
Yeah.
One is an inescapable, irritating sound which makes you lose the will to live. The other is the sound of a fly. Alright, so, but to make it more difficult, what I've done is I've sped up the recordings 1,000 times.
1,000 times, okay.
1,000 times, okay? This is sound A.
It sounds quite a lot like a mosquito.
Right.
So I'm going to go fly with that one.
And she's correct! It's an orange-bearded blue bottle!
I guess the highness comes from speeding it up.
Yes, it is. Yes, well done. You've got the idea, Hester.
Thank you.
Right. It's now time for you to listen to sound B.
I'm going to have to say that one is McFly.
Right, she's saying McFly. It's actually a fly. More specifically, it's a stiletto fly on a fairground carousel. Oh, never mind.
What?
Never mind. Didn't get that. Never mind. Right, it's time to listen to sound C.
I think McFly again, but I'm questioning myself now, Benito. I'm going to go with McFly.
This is why I tell you that was actually a trick question. That was a Tsetse fly at a McFly concert.
How ridiculous.
Very good. I'll give you half a point for that. Half a point.
Okay.
And it's time to speak about your other interests, of course. Now, you have a diversity of other interests. You do salsa, is that right?
Yeah.
But you also have been getting into pottery, so I hear. How long have you been doing pottery for?
Well, I started at the start of the academic year, so I guess we're on...
Goodness me. That must be a big pot.
Oh, yes.
And what got you into that?
I've been watching a lot of Pottery Throwdown, which is a bit like Bake Off. So it's the same sort of premise in that people compete making pots instead of cakes.
Very nice. Whatever floats your boat, Hester. Whatever floats your boat. Anyway, we're coming up to the end of the show now, unfortunately. But we like to end on a little bit of music, if that's all right. So if you could end the show with a particular song, Hester, what would that be and why?
Well, I'm keeping it research themed with my flies. So I'm going to go for Fly on the Wall by AC/DC.
Fly on the Wall by AC/DC. Now let me check. Oh, unfortunately, we don't have copyright permission to that song this week, I'm afraid, Hester.
Oh, that's a shame.
But we have got an absolute classic by Donna Summer and Barbara Streisand. Right, that's quite enough of that. Right, well, thank you so much, Hester, for coming on Biology from the Bedroom, and best of luck with the rest of your research.
Thank you very much, Benito. To you too.
Join me next time where I'll be putting another perky PhD student through their biological paces as we get even closer to finding the most promising young research biologists in the country. If you like this podcast, don't forget to subscribe for more wildlife and science-related content. But for now, if you don't mind, I need to encourage a blue bottle to come off some dodgems. See you next time, everybody!